working on, we just started individually with sketches, and sketches, and then we'd get together and say, no, that's not good, no, that's good, that's good, that's good. And we kind of combined features.
Yeah, but you did the composition.
Yeah, so I kind of did the initial
She did
sketch, and then Laurie had individual sketches and drawings of these kind of figures and these historic figures, so then I kind of combined them all. And I know she wanted a big tree, and I did too, so I brought it to her, and then we refined it. Then we got it on big paper. We went to Kinko's and got it printed on a big paper, and then
That was our roadmap.
That was our roadmap. Then we worked from that. Then we could reduce it to smaller when we had to assemble it and number it. And we had to number all these because it looks like you could put it back together, but one piece could look like another.
These are all numbered. Every piece is numbered, so it's our giant COVID-19 puzzle. I mean, it is quite an undertaking to put all these pieces back in order. And if we didn't have a numbering system, it would be terrible. So we have this. This is a very important copy because it shows all the numbering system and where every piece goes.
Yeah, like our little map. So if we were working with paint and you made a mistake, you could paint over it. But with the clay, you sculpt it, you paint it, and if it does not turn out, then you have backups. Like we tried to have 2 or 3 backups to paint if one wasn't to our specs.
Yeah, because we made molds of all the.
Yeah, we made molds because we knew with clay it's very volatile. You could make this and it could warp up like a cup, depending on the temperature, the kiln. Just a lot of variables.
Yeah, there's just so many things like that I didn't know. Like Sherman Stevens, who's an early. He was. He came into Royal Oak and bought plots of land, and he was responsible to bring the steam engine through Royal Oak, and that created a lot of commerce, or the ability to have commerce. So he had plots of land, and he gave some of it away to like the Baptist church. So he kind of created the downtown, which the downtown that we know, that area. And I think. As we move along and we're progressing into this new phase of Royal Oak and building this big, wonderful complex, a lot of people, it's been controversial, and a lot of people really are full of history, and they know the Royal Oak's history, and we too want to preserve it, and we want to honor what our city has come from. So I think that it kind of ties Royal Oak's past with what's happening now, and to have it go into the new building, I think is kind of a way to join, what has been and honoring that with what's happening now. So, I mean, I'm happy that we decided to go the route of researching and learning about early Royal Oak history. It was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to do that. So we, there are a lot of things I didn't know about early Royal Oak, and we learned a lot as we research. A lot of the characters so they were early settlers of Royal Oak, and they had a lot of ingenuity and talent, and they brought a lot of their skills to Royal Oak. One of them is Orson Starr over here, and he's standing on a cow because he was a bell maker, and he brought his skills in the early 1800s from upstate New York, and he began this. He's one of the first businesses in Royal Oak creating these bells, 7 different types of bells. And then his son actually created a brick and tile factory. Is that he actually sold bells in Cuba and into Canada. And so he was really proud of his bells, and they were made out of different types of metal, different. So we really wanted to get him in, but then he, provided a lot of jobs in Royal Oak, and jobs to Elizabeth and Gilbert Hammer, who were early descendants of Royal Oak. They came and moved into their house. They moved it on their property in 1865. They were here before that, but when they actually created a residence on 7 acres, it was in 1865. Lakeesha Morrison was on Facebook, and I joined all these Facebook pages because because I wanted to hook up with people that had Royal Oak history, and she said that she was leading these peaceful protests for Black Lives Matter, and she said, "I'm a proud descendant of early Royal Oak," and I knew right away who she was, and so she was kind of like the missing piece. So we quickly communicated with her and developed imagery, and her face is our model for
Lakeesha.
for Elizabeth, because we didn't have a good picture of Elizabeth. Yeah.
I posed as a younger version of my grandmother, Elizabeth Hamer. Her husband is Gilbert Hamer. They escaped slavery from Kentucky and settled in Royal Oak and established a family and a home and worked. And they worked alongside with Almond Star, making bills and cement blocks. The baby that she's carrying in her arms is her son, Charles. So they kind of came from Canada and came to Royal Oak with him in his arms, in her arms, and established home. So when they came to Royal Oak, they were the first Black Americans in Royal Oak. So I call myself Royal Oak royalty because, you know, they established a life for me here. And being the first Black Americans in this beautiful city, I feel very privileged to be here and still live here. From what I'm understanding, we are the longest living Black family in Royal Oak, and I'm so proud of that. Growing up, my father instilled in us that we need to continue to say her name, which is Elizabeth Hamer, and just be very appreciative of what they started and left behind. We still have property in Royal Oak, and we plan on keeping it for a very long time because, you know, they worked very hard to get what they got and to pass it down to family. And every Saturday, my father would wake us up and give us a little bit of history, and I'm so appreciative of that, and I want to continue to make them proud. And I think I'm doing a great job so far, and I am so appreciative to have Royal Oak acknowledge us as the first Black family in Royal Oak. I carry this picture with me because this is my father, Keith Wilkins. He passed away 4 weeks ago, and I carry him with me in my heart and along with me in this picture because without him I wouldn't know the knowledge I have right now. And I'm so appreciative of him, and I'm so blessed to have him in my life, and so blessed to have Royal Oak acknowledge his strong and love for Royal Oak through us.
I grew up in Royal Oak. I've always lived here, and I've always known about the bells, but I didn't know how to get one. And for whatever reason, I wanted one. I wanted one bad. It took me a year and a half. But in that year and a half, I was able to do a lot of research and find a lot of really interesting things about these bells. I mean, they're not just animal bells. They are Royal Oak's history. I know this is crazy. It's making me weepy, but it is such a good part of Royal Oak history. Everybody should know about it. And my thought was, everybody should own one that lives in Royal Oak. So anyway, I got this bell finally after a year and a half, and I was so excited you would have thought that I won the lottery. And soon after that, I went out for breakfast with my sister and my brother, and I brought the bell with me, and I was telling them the story about it and how I got it, and I was so excited. And they just kind of looked at me like, are you kidding me? So I just thought, oh, okay, yeah, you need to put this away and we'll talk about other things. So we did. And the next day I get a phone call, and it's from my brother. And he says, hey, I went home and I looked up these Orson Star bells, and did you know that they were Royal Oak's first manufacturing, the first industry? And I said, yeah, I did know that. And he said, did you know that they hired that Orson Star hired some free slaves to work on these? I said, no, I didn't know that. Which I did because I had researched it. And then he gave me a couple other facts that he thought were just fascinating. And I said, yeah, I did know all that. And so he said, well, you know what? I want one of those. So I hung up the phone with him, and I had to call my sister right away and say, you're not going to believe this, but I just talked to our brother, and this is what he had to say. And she was just real quiet listening. And when I got done, she said, well, I want one of those bells. And I said, what do you mean you want one of those bells? And she goes, well, yeah, I get together with my grade school kids. We all went to Royal Oak schools. And, you know, Judge Moore, he grew up in Vincetta. He lives right down the street. It would be a hoot for him to see it. So, but I thought the story was so funny that I started telling some friends, and they started saying, well, I want one. So the one thing that everybody that wanted a bell had in common was they wanted them for different reasons, but the one thing they had in common was everybody had a little piece of Royal Oak in their heart. When I started collecting, I thought, I want these bells to stay in Royal Oak. They're hard to find. I don't want them to go back out there. And these were coming home. So then I had 3 more left over, and I thought, oh, you know what? Royal Oak built a brand new City Hall. They need one at the City Hall. So I called City Hall and I talked to a really nice Judy Davids, and she told me that yes, absolutely they would love to have one. And I said, well, what about the library? I think the library needs one. She said, you know what? I'm going to have a call with them today. I'll call and ask them. So she did, and they said yes, they would love to have one, except they don't have any place to house it permanently. So I said, well, okay, then we'll just, donate them to the City Hall. But if the Royal Oak Library ever gets somewhere that they could permanently house it, I know someone who was a librarian that would be absolutely happy and thrilled to have her bell donated to the library. It's my sister, who was also a librarian. So they should keep that in mind.